Hello, welcome to Hold for Sound. Let's talk media production. I'm your host, Mantha, the studio manager here at Frostline Studios. Frostline is an audio and video production company in Anchorage, Alaska that values quality, creativity, and curiosity, and our podcast aims to highlight what happens behind the scenes in media production. This is a big episode today because in 2024, we just finished some serious remodeling of our audio control room. We are finally up and fully functional after completely tearing out all of the cabling and patch bays and everything downstairs in the audio control room in order to install a brand new, first in the world console that we are very excited for.
Yes, it is the Neve Genesys G3D. It is the first of its kind, specifically in that it is the first console that can do full analog Atmos mixes, as well as being controllable digitally with full recall.
Here to explain it to me and to you is Derek Haukaas, our senior audio engineer, and Rich Cooper, our executive producer. Derek's been on before, but this is Rich's first time on the podcast.
My first podcast.
Your first podcast. You started Frostline Studios how many years ago now?
Well, it started as Frostline Productions, and that started in 2009, just as a freelance, cinematographer, editor, did everything myself and worked that way for years. And in 2018 is when at that time, it was still just me, rebranded to Frostline Studios. I had just moved into this big space that was a former recording studio, and really just started from nothing but the space. It might seem odd, like, well, why do you have a recording studio when your video production? That's where you started. But I actually started my career as a musician at the age of 14 years old. That was my first paying gigs. I started.
Whoa. What did you play?
I'm a bass player and a singer. And at that time played trombone and studied music in college a long time ago, in the late 80s. No, I'm sorry, early 80s. Oh, my God. And so, and then went on tour and was a professional musician. And so I come from a music background, but just the big dream was to always score a movie. And in that search, back in the late 90s, that's when I discovered video production, video editing. And I just took this right turn in my career at that point, and everything else fell away. And I've just been doing video production full time since 2000. This is kind of that full circle journey with the recording studio.
Yeah, because then this recording studio belonged to a friend of yours.
Yeah, Charlie Hewitt had Mirror Studios here. 18 years, I think he was here. And I was going through a transitional period in my video production, and the universe works in very amazing ways. And my wife and I had just had this big conversation about what's next, because I was working out of my house, and we just decided I'm going to go out and start looking for studio space to start growing the business again. Literally, that was on a Friday, and literally Sunday morning, Charlie Hewitt calls me out of the blue. And I had done a few projects here, mixing in 5.1 in his studio. He just says, "Hey, Rich, kids are grown. We just sold our house. We're moving to Idaho. And, I'd love to help you come into this space and save it from getting demoed back to offices."
Yeah, because it's this really incredible space that he built out to be this great recording studio.
Yeah, and it really is. He built a world-class facility. It was really a leap of faith to come into a place like this and then to build it from scratch. Because Charlie, while a lot of the office furniture and things, we worked out a deal to buy from him, but he took all of the equipment, so there was no equipment in here, so to speak. So I had to build it all from scratch. And that took some time.
Yeah.
In broad terms, our goals here are to have a world-class facility that anybody can come into, whether it's, the 16, 17-year-old kid in high school that's doing their first album, all the way up to Grammy Award-winning artists can come in here and get that same thing, but it's accessible to all. I think that is what makes us unique, is that really making the investment to bring this kind of technology and this kind of quality to everyone, no matter what level you're on, and make it affordable for people, and lifting that community up through our work is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, to where you don't, like, removing a barrier in that you have to leave to make something that's really high quality. And there's lots of folks here that are producing really incredible music from here in the state, negating that misconception that, like, oh, if I want to focus on my music and have something that I'm really proud of, I need to leave.
Following along with this trajectory, tell me how the Neve, the new console that we have, tell me a little bit about what it is and how it fits into kind of like this story of Frostline, and what our goals are moving forward.
Well, for the Dolby Atmos, that was really the technology that I wanted to have up here. I had edited a documentary for Paul Lawrence here in Alaska, and he wanted to mix it in 5.1 surround sound, which we were going to do here. We had that capability. And that was in 2018, right when we had that first year we were in here. He called me one day and said, I really want to do this in this new Dolby Atmos mixing. And I'm like, well, that's awesome, but we can't do that here. He goes, no, he says, I just got a grant and we're going down to Skywalker Ranch to mix this.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so, if you're in the business, you know what Skywalker Ranch is. If you don't, it's basically what George Lucas built for Star Wars, and then now Disney owns it, and it's a 60,000 square foot facility. It's just an amazing thing. So we went down to Skywalker for 10 days in Nicasio, California, and mixed that with a Oscar-winning re-recording mixer, Christopher Barnett. And he had just done the documentary Icarus, and was one of the, I think, 4 or 5 people that worked on Icarus. And it was like the highlight of my entire music / film career to be in a place like that and that quality. And so since that point in 2018, Paul and I have been talking about Dolby Atmos and wanting to be able to do that here. And we started to kind of cobble together a system for it. And then I saw this ad came through on Facebook or something about, the Neve Genesys G3D, which takes that analog quality Neve, but puts it in a digitally controlled, completely automatable, and Dolby Atmos capable console. Derek and I have always just absolutely been in love with the Neve preamps. And we have the OPX 1073, right? 1073 OPX 8-channel pre that we got a few years ago and just loved it. So it was late at night. I think it was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I'm texting Derek, oh, look at this, look at this console. And he was just like, we were drooling over this for a few weeks. And anyway, that was the kind of the start of all of this, right?
Yeah, and then you're like, okay, we just got to do it.
Yeah.
One thing that Rich mentioned, the 1073 OPX unit that we got a few years ago, and that has some of the recall features that the Neve Genesys has, and that was a game changer for me in having the studio where I'll be doing session drums on something, so I won't be in the control room, I'll be in the live room tracking, and if I'm by myself, that can be time consuming to be going back and forth adjusting preamps and all that. So the 1073 OPX was really amazing for speeding up that process and getting that efficiency down, because you can save your gain levels, your impedance for each channel, your phantom power, all that stuff. So you can quickly switch back and forth between types of sessions. So then knowing how well that worked and how reliable it was, seeing that same type of thing in a console where it's not just the pre's, but it's also your EQs and all that. Like, so now it's like we have 16 channels in the console and then another 8 channels on the 1073 OPX that are all recallable based on what I'm doing. That was a big incentive for me on speeding up workflow.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's the efficiency of the workflow was paramount in the decision to do this, because the old system we had, while it was great, it was, okay, if Derek's got to track drums, but maybe, you know, in the next hour he's got to do an ADR session remote from London, right? And setting each one of those things up takes time. And so there was so much time between different kinds of things just to set everything up. This Neve now allows us to have everything set up pretty much all the time, and it's ready to go. You just load the project and look, and it's, you know, so that time efficiency was a real big one for us.
For a while, it was kind of like Derek was the only one who knew how to use the console downstairs.
Yeah, because it was all done with patch base. And so, you know, you had to repatch everything. If he was doing a drum session and then we had to do a voice session, we'd have to physically reroute everything on the patch base to make it all work internally into the box, right? And now that's just not a thing anymore.
And that console, that sort of efficiency existed before the Neve Genesys G3D, correct? But this was the first one that had Dolby Atmos technology like built in, not as like an add-on.
Yeah, the Genesis series console, Genesis Black series, they've been around for a few years, and it has that recall system. But for music, Rich and I, we love console sound. But we know that because we do so much work in both music and post-production, whatever we get can't just scratch one of those itches. It's got to be able to be transferable to both sides of the company. So the Genesis controllability and recallability and all that has been around for a bit, but the new G3D upgrade to it and the master section of the console, that is what is completely new and is the Dolby Atmos integrated portion of it.
What exactly is Dolby Atmos, and why is it so cool? Like, why is it so important?
Dolby Atmos has been around for quite a few years, especially in the film side of things. And it's going by a few different names: immersive audio, spatial audio. It is a format of kind of surround mixing that is not based off of your channel count. And by that, I mean, like in the past, most surround sound formats are like 5.1, 7.1, etc. And those numbers stand for a number of channels. So 5.1 means you've got 5 speakers around you. The 0.1 stands for, the 1 is your LFE, your low frequency effects channel, and 7.1 is 7 speakers around you. What is unique about Dolby Atmos is that it's not based on a specific channel count. It's based on 3D space. So the unique thing with that is that it is designed to then, when you do an Atmos mix, it then translates and folds down into whatever playback system that you are listening back to it in. If it's a set 5.1 in a theater or a 9.1.4 in a bigger theater, it is adaptable to all of those because it's not tied to these are the channels that the audio is printed on.
Yeah. And it has speakers in the ceiling pointing down as well. So it's a completely surround or immersed sound that you can have 3D objects that you can float and automate through that 3D space. Yeah.
So it's like what you want to be mixing in when you are for film. That's why it's been around for film for a lot longer. But it's also, I think, it's the direction a lot of music is moving in too, correct?
Yeah. It's been a format for music or a format that music has been moving into for, I don't want to get this wrong, but probably at least maybe 5 years or so, roughly, maybe a little longer. But it's been pretty heavily pushed because of improvements in playback systems, whether that's like home speaker systems or car audio, or even the newer Bluetooth headphones and stuff like that, that there is a kind of version of Atmos, usually called binaural when it's on headphones, that it actually is achievable for people to enjoy and not have to invest in a huge home theater system anymore. So I think that's been part of the push with Atmos for music, is that much wider accessibility for listeners to actually enjoy it in what it's intended for. Some folks are kind of comparing it to like it's the new stereo, like back in whenever it was that when everything went from mono to stereo. There's a big uproar, and like a lot of folks were like, "Oh, this is some newfangled technology. It's never going to catch on." But now stereo is like it's how we listen to music. What I love about Atmos versus stereo is it just opens up this whole new field of dynamics for music. So you're not having to kind of cram all your information into 2 stereo channels.
Left or right.
Yeah, you can have it all around you and moving all around. So the peaks and the valleys of the music are there's much more distance between them because you're not trying to have impact and kind of emotion based off of punching someone in the ear with this really loud wall of sound that's everything kind of, you can end up losing that dynamic journey. And that's something I really am enjoying about this shift in music.
There's almost more subtlety to the texture you can provide.
Yeah, and you can hear stuff that you couldn't before because it's got space to actually breathe.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating when you listen to something that, like songs that we all grew up on, and listening to them in stereo, and then listen to a remixed Atmos version of it, you're hearing things in this song that you never heard before because there's so much space now around in that sound field that all of these intricate stuff can come out and have a place in the mix. Yeah, so it's really fascinating to go back and listen to some of these things that have been remastered.
We were listening to like this song that I'd heard all growing up. I listened to it for the first time sitting in Derek's chair with its Atmos mix and was like, oh my gosh, I understand speaker nerds now.
Yeah.
Like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I think I don't want to get too like out there, but I feel like for me the main thing about music is emotion. And so I think Atmos is just a new and exciting avenue to convey emotion and to convey a feeling within your music. It's a new palette or a new canvas, however you want to look at it, to kind of
a new dimension.
A new dimension, yeah. A third dimension, to really communicate to your listeners what type of emotion and feeling you're trying to convey with the song.
Yeah.
Because everything is, you're just surrounded in it. You're like just in this bubble. It feels like the most amazing pair of headphones that you don't have on your head, if that makes sense. It's just, it feels like there's nothing else going on in the world around you.
I remember like being at a Blackwater Railroad concert and feeling held by their music. And that's what listening to something, especially a song that you really love, in Dolby Atmos feels like, being like held by that music. And you just feel like you're fully in that world in a way that I haven't experienced in just like a headphones stereo mix.
It's interesting because one thing that reminds me of one thing I've come to notice when folks come by to listen to something in Atmos, they sit in the sweet spot and 9 times out of 10, they never pick up their phone. They're like just completely lost in the moment, and it's like it's cool. It's like it's refreshing.
Yeah, it's like the closest you can get to live music. You know, or
Like you're on stage with them.
yeah, like even more so. Like, and you're not even listening to the live music like in front of you. You are in the music.
Yeah, you're in the world that the artist created with that song.
It's like VR to audio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to talk a little bit about so this console itself, we've talked about how it has Dolby Atmos capability. We've talked about the automation and all of that, but this is the part that kind of goes above my head a lot of times, like how the technology and the equipment, the physical equipment you're using, how that affects the actual sound, and what is different about this console and its hardware and software than what we had before.
For me, it's probably the 13 Genelec speakers that surround you. It's a lot of Genelecs, but we did not spare any expense. You know, we could have went with a less expensive option for the speaker system itself, but we chose the Genelecs for a very specific reason.
A big part of our decision making and kind of putting this overhaul together was simplicity, and so generally. Simplicity in design also goes hand in hand with quality and expense.
Yeah.
So we wanted a system that was, simple and easily changed if we need it to be, and not kind of cobbled together with several different parts of different design that technically work together, but it's kind of feels a little duct taped together in a sense.
Just a little. I mean, we had a good system before, but that's a little bit how it was.
It was not fully. It wasn't designed from the ground up like this is. So with the Genelecs, they're smart speakers. So each speaker has basically a little computer inside it that you can load profiles onto for tuning your room, tuning the speakers themselves. That's super important when you're just using stereo speakers, having your speakers tuned and time aligned with each other. But when you get that many speakers all around you, it is exponentially more important.
14 now.
Yeah, for actually, I think it's 12. Maybe no, I think you're.
Well, I think I was counting the subs.
Yeah. So technically,
12 and the subs. Yeah.
So having a system that can be quickly tuned as well, if something gets moved or you go in and like, something just doesn't sound right. Instead of having to take at least a day to go through and manually tune everything with a reference mic in front of each speaker, and you can use the software that Genelec has for their speakers to run signal through, and then it's just very, very efficient, and it has great results. So I think also sonically, like if we're talking about the sonics of it, when it comes to the console, it is still difficult to fully replicate what happens when you're actually sending electricity through copper and iron and all those components that are inside each channel strip. What happens to the signal and the sound through that process, whether it's recording or sending it back through the console for a mix, it's hard to replicate that in a digital, like in a fully in the box digital setting. My approach to whatever we're working on is you try to get things right at the source. And
fix it in pre.
Yep, fix it in pre. So there's like the individual recording, the music or whatever it is, or the voiceover. And then after that, you got the mic. And then after that, you've got your hardware. And then you've got your post after that. So trying to get things as close to how you want them to sound at the start while you're capturing it, the better. So that's part of the desire for having the actual hardware to accomplish those things with hardware dynamics, hardware EQ. Because it's a big debate, but I still feel like it sounds better than digital. There's not a harshness and especially with EQ, digital EQs can tend, when you put them side by side, can tend to have brittle and hollow sound to them.
The console itself can mix the analog signal.
Yeah. So
and what does that mean?
So after you track, there's like the things usually move on to the mixing phase, which is kind of really fine-tooth comb, going through things, figuring out what is getting in the way of other things, making space for elements. And so with this console, you basically send everything back out of Pro Tools into the console, and you get to kind of, again, dial in your dynamics and your EQs and choose different signal paths, because we have a couple different EQs loaded on the console, and different depending on the channel buckets. So you can choose like, I recorded through this channel strip with this EQ, but for mixing, I want to switch it over to this EQ and see how that sounds.
And you're actually sending the analog signal through in post, rather than doing it through a software and having like the computer do math to change it.
Yep.
So you're really going, it goes through the console when it goes in, and it comes through the console when it goes out.
Derek said when it goes through the physical, like the copper, and it goes through that, there's a different sound.
There's a glue there, and Derek has talked about it, about using fewer mics, because you don't have to use all these mics to get the great sound.
Yeah. I've noticed with this console. Previously, I had a pretty extensive, like for drums, I had a pretty extensive drum miking setup to get the sound that I wanted, again, while like at the source. But now with the EQs and everything involved with this new workflow, I have started stripping mics off of the kit, because I'm like, I pull a session up that I've just recorded. I'm like, I don't actually need this mic anymore. I don't need 3 mics on the snare. I don't, et cetera. Like, because there's a cohesiveness with everything. For one, being recorded on matching channel strips, matching preamps. They have the same transient response for each channel.
Simplicity.
Simplicity. And so what that results in is much more accurate phase alignment and phase cohesion and all that. So the sound is fuller.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to ask about, because we don't use drum samples, which is somewhat unique, unless we create them ourselves. And that's something that we're very proud of. You're a drummer yourself, and we have our video equipment gear room, and then we have our audio equipment gear room that we actually just call the drum room because we have so many drums. And like Derek has a kit for every single, like, oh, you want this thing? Okay, well, we'll use this kit. And you want that thing? Okay, whatever you need for drums, we've got it. But yeah, so I remember you saying too, like as we were deciding to get the console, installing the console, that the Neve console is really good for drums and will help us continue to do what we've been doing.
I would say it's kind of not just specific to the Neve G3D. It's kind of, Neve in general is known for being really phenomenal for tracking drums. And I think it just comes down to their circuit design and the transformers they use and all that kind of under the hood stuff. That
how the signal actually just moves through the hardware.
Yeah, and the choices in how they designed their, specifically like the 1073 style preamp, where there is a really phenomenal sounding low end in your mid range, as well as really kind of pleasant and not muddy. And also another thing that Neve is known for is like the saturation when you push a preamp hard. And so that what that means is, like, if you push the gain on a preamp, and it kind of starts to hit the headroom ceiling, and the sound will start to kind of break up and distort a little bit. And if you push that really far, it's going to not sound good. But if you just do that a little bit, what'll end up happening is it'll kind of round out some of the really kind of abrasive transients or like really kind of brittle, sharp sounding things. And with drums, there's a lot of really snappy and potentially abrasive sounds. So when you push those preamps a bit and get them to kind of have some heat, some saturation on them, they just they round out the signal in a very pleasing way.
And that's something you just cannot do going directly into a digital converter.
Yep.
Something only analog can do.
Yeah, if you try doing that with digital converters, the sound kind of falls in on itself. It just kind of collapses, and it sounds both crushed and hollow at the same time. And I hate using what are kind of audio world buzzwords like analog warmth and saturation, hardware saturation, all that stuff, because it can be overused. But I think the results will speak for themselves.
How exactly does the analog and the digital overlap and interact in this console?
Yeah, one of the big selling points of working on the digital domain of things is your recall and being able to switch back and forth between sessions, mix sessions specifically, in a very time efficient manner. So that's been a downside of analog consoles for forever. Of that, like, okay, this client approved this mix, but a few weeks later they decide they actually want the tambourine half a dB louder. So I've got to look at all these notes that I made. Okay, this EQ, the Q is set here, the gain is +5, and it's at 1.7K, and you have to do that for each channel for your entire signal flow of going through and manually redialing and everything, and hoping that you either took your notes right or that it's just going to sound the same. And so it just makes that workflow difficult to be fast in when it comes to having to juggle multiple projects at a time.
Not only multiple projects, but a huge variety of different kinds of projects that we do here.
Yeah, so what is wonderful is that technology has come a long way. And so this workflow that we're in now, each channel strip on the console is controlled digitally on the console via a set of encoders, and those encoders are controlling the actual channel strip hardware internal pieces, cards and all that.
It's like a piano that plays itself.
Exactly. And then that is also transferable into Pro Tools, because this console has it's a console-specific plugin that goes on each channel inside your Pro Tools session, and it links that channel within Pro Tools to its hardware channel, and that plugin has all your EQ and dynamics and all that on it. So you can either use the console encoders to manipulate that, or you can use the plugin as a digital control. And the
digital control of the physical hardware.
And what is really cool about that is you can do all your, like if I'm wanting to do an EQ automation ride where there's like a verse where I want the drums to like go really lo-fi, so I'm going to shave off all the top end. Well, I can automate that within Pro Tools, that EQ move of bringing down a high pass filter. And that is then written into the Pro Tools automation, which is debatable, but it usually is a lot more reliable than console automation. So I'm doing a lot of those moves that, like those things that can be tricky with a recall, doing that within Pro Tools, and it's peace of mind. And it's also like, okay, a year down the road, I don't have to worry about this sounding different when I open the session back up.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And what is also fun is like you can be there within Pro Tools moving, like specifically on the 88R EQ modules, you can be like adjusting the parameters on each EQ knob, and you can hear on the channel strip, you can hear, because they're detinted pots, you can hear them clicking inside there. And so it's like, okay, yes, this is in fact a analog circuitry. This is all doing. It's not just a plug-in when they're there. It's not some snake oil.
That's pretty fun. So I remember it was about this time last year. We had this big team meeting, and Rich was like, "So, Derek and I have a plan. Let's talk about like the whole process of that and what we learned and all of that."
Oh my gosh. Well, you learn that nothing ever goes as planned. Once you make that decision, and it's like that with anything in business or in life, you commit to a decision and then just go and deal with everything as it comes. But you've got that end goal. And, there were a lot of things that it just seemed like everything took twice as long as we thought it was going to. We thought we were going to be like done by August. We thought,
it was even July that we thought we were going to be.
Yeah. I don't even remember the original deadline in our heads that we were thinking, but yeah, July, right? But the reality is, this console's handmade, so that they build them one at a time to order. So when you order one and you pay for it, now it's 8 to 10 weeks before it's ready in the factory. But that turned into 12 or 14 weeks, right? Because it just took them a little more time, right?
And then it got held up in customs for another
and then the
couple
shipping.
weeks.
Oh, well, we're a international hub. They can just ship it right over. It's going to be in Anchorage in 2 days. No. But literally, they didn't ship it to Anchorage because it had to go through Tennessee, and there's customs there. So and it sat at customs for 2 or 3 weeks before they let it come through. Then you're a month and a half behind your original schedule. And then okay, now it's finally left customs and it's on its way. It still took it a week to get here. And then it showed up. Because we didn't know exactly when it was arriving, we couldn't prep the studio for its arrival because we had work to do. We have to keep the studio up and running until we knew the console was on site.
And also we went with the route of hiring a tech to come up to help with the install. And we couldn't book the tech to come up until the console was in the building. And then we're having to navigate their schedule. And it's not just like, they can drive over we're not in LA. They have to take a week off to fly up to Alaska.
Yeah. And so by the time that console gets here and it's on the ground, we had to shut the studio down for the install because we can't do any work up there.
We also shut the studio down because we ripped everything out. We had to rip everything out.
It took 5 days to rip out everything, and we literally took everything out of the control room. There was nothing left. Not a cable left, not a piece of hardware, no computers, nothing.
It was a little nerve-wracking.
It was empty. And so that was 5 days. And then the tech gets here, and he spent 6 days here.
Yeah, it's 5 or 6.
Yeah. 5 or 6 days just on the install with Derek, and I helped as much as I could, but they pretty much worked down there for 6 days straight, putting everything back and building the studio with all of the new gear. And it's not just the console. I mean, all the speakers, but then there's the whole new Pro Tools rack.
It's the Pro Tools or the Avid HDX converters. And
I remember going down there during the install, and it's like when you're a kid and you've got Legos and the entire floor around you is just covered in Legos, and there's piles, and Frank the tech was sitting crisscross in the middle of it, doing it. It also kind of looked like spaghetti, somebody had made spaghetti and then tripped, and all of the spaghetti was just all over everything because of all the cables everywhere.
I mean, when we signed up to do this and made that decision, I had no idea how much time and effort it was going to actually take to make it happen. But that's with everything, right? But I would do it again in a heartbeat, right?
100%.
This has been such an amazing journey, and
to
see that goal come to life,
what are some of the things that we learned through the process besides like it's always going to be more work than you anticipate, but you should still do it anyway.
It's always going to be more money than you anticipate too. Trust me. But in a good way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's always worth it doing it correctly from the start.
It's one of our core values. Take the time to do it right.
Yep. That is, and that's a tough one for me. And I think in general, like you want to be productive. And so it's like, okay, I can get this system kind of halfway working so I can get this project out the door. And then you end up shooting yourself in the foot because another project comes up right after you get that one out the door. So then you're still only working 50% capacity, and you just end up delaying. Like, okay, yeah, I'm going to get around to fixing that, but you just kick the can down the road, and it gets harder and harder to do that if you don't from the start.
Yeah.
And that was a huge, really, I can't speak highly enough of Frank and how knowledgeable he is and patient he is. And that was a huge help for us.
I mean, like this whole process itself was like, well, it's a lot of money, but spending the money to not have to install it ourselves was huge.
That's a big one. And just, when you're buying this level of equipment and going through a vendor like Vintage King, working with companies like Neve, they're very dialed in and very serious about what they do. So when there's an issue, and there always will be an issue, and there was an issue, and this kind of goes back to, you mentioned at the beginning of this, and we haven't really explained it, first in the world. And that's a pretty strong statement. But when we purchased this console and all this gear and we made the order, we were told we were probably number 2 or 3 in the United States to get this console, and
pretty
we were
exciting
pretty excited
to begin
about
with.
that. We got it all installed. Frank did an amazing job. He left, and within a couple of days, it started having an issue, and it was like doing some weird things that we couldn't figure out what it was doing. And we literally got on the phone with Neve in the UK, and they FaceTimed with us, told us, okay, do this, and did all these little tests. And this was like on a Friday, and they said, okay, we're going to fly a tech over. He'll be there Monday morning from the UK to fix this. And so the tech comes, and I think it's one of their main engineers that actually builds these consoles, flew all the way to Alaska to fix this issue we were having. At that point, we figured out that we were probably the first in the United States to have this console. But when the tech was here and we were working through, and he was here for 3 days, and it was just a simple little power supply issue on the motherboard. It was really simple, but it was hard to diagnose and pinpoint it. But in that process, he literally had this console ripped apart, rewired.
He was like soldering things.
Yeah, he resoldered some things on the motherboard to fix this power supply issue out a USB port to a monitor. That's all it was doing, was just recycling. But in that process, he says, well, this is the first console that we've shipped, period.
The first one out of the factory.
Yeah. And so I had no idea that we were quite on that bleeding edge of technology. I think his next stop, like when he left here, he was going back to London and was going to spend a week at Abbey Road Studios to put a G3D system in their console.
It was much more than a week. It was like many weeks.
Yeah. So Abbey Road's getting this technology into their studio as well. But we had no idea that we were actually the first studio in the world to take shipment of a Neve Genesys G3D console. It's just surprises like that. You just don't know what to expect, right? And you really have to be able to work well with people because, they're doing their best. And I'll tell you, it's stressful. You spend that much money and that much time, and now the studio's down. Their response was so amazing, and they just took care of it. And now everything's up and running. And, the thing I would say to somebody that is thinking about doing a major upgrade like this and working with these major companies and spending this kind of money, plan for everything to take twice as long as you think it's going to take. They're doing the best they can, but the key is to work with really reputable companies. Like we did the whole purchase process with Vintage King, and those guys there were just so dialed in, and because hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gear all sitting in a room, and we have to ship it all here to get it here. And, they're trying to sell us the right stuff to make the whole system work.
Yeah, and they worked really closely with us to kind of like customize, because we're not just music, we also do this, and we do film, and we need this kind of equipment. And you mentioned how Frank was sort of customizing it during the install.
Literally while he was installing, right?
Yeah, especially like the patch bay layout and stuff. We'd talked a bit via email and on the phone before he came up, and we'd kind of landed on one route for the layout of the console of the patch bay and the routing in the studio. And there's a few things that came up as we were doing it, and I kind of realized, I actually don't want it like that because it's not going to fit all the needs that we have. Can we reconfigure this? I think that all is a reminder for me of like, no one person can be the expert and know everything on everything. Like, so you need to work with people that, especially when you're making an investment like this, you need to work with people that know more than you and are specialized in whatever aspect of that process is, and to actually have the best results.
Was there any other equipment you want to specifically shout out that has like changed your workflow?
Well, the latency issue was solved, right? Like there's always latency issues when you're working in the box and tracking and listening back, and it can get really weird sometimes.
For dummies like me, latency is
basically a delay of the signal when you're hearing it back in headphones. And for most people, unless you're running a huge session and have your buffer size really high, it's not that noticeable. But especially when you get into singing and any also like string instruments like cellos, violins, and all that, if there's a latency, even a very slight one, it'll actually make the listener either feel like or put them out of pitch with the recording, because the signal is leaving their body or their instrument at one time and it's getting back to them another, and there'll actually be some phase cancellation with that, and so it'll kind of trick the player or the singer or whoever it is into not being able to hear what is actually being performed. And also when you start working with more and more seasoned musicians and people who've been in the studio a lot, they can recognize that a lot more quickly. Whereas someone who's not used to that environment might just be like, oh, this sounds different. And like, I don't know what it is. But yeah, so we switched to the Avid Matrix for our conversion. We were using before that the Apogee Symphony, which it sounds really, really great. But we needed the higher channel count of the HDX and also the ability with Avid converters, that because Avid owns Pro Tools, they have a pretty much zero or next to zero latency monitoring. If you're using plugins and stuff, there's additional processing power within the converter that is helping carry the load of that.
That just kind of has to do with the fact that they're all the same sort of from the same manufacturer.
Yep, yeah, they're designed to work together.
So what are the biggest differences that you're noticing from, I mean, besides everything that we've talked about, in the system from before to now?
I would say like workflow is changing, and it's still evolving with the setup. I think that's kind of a moving target. But what I will say is that like end result, what I've noticed being different, the first thing that comes to mind is low end. Printing mixes through that system and then playing back on other systems and all that. It's like, okay, this is the low end I've been looking for. Low end can be notoriously tricky to get right, to where it's you can feel it, but it's not overpowering and it's not eating up all your headroom in the mix. I remember the first time I printed a mix, it was just a rough mix I wanted to test on my headphones and in the car and stuff. And I put on my headphones and I was driving home and I listened to it and I was like, whoa. Okay, this is it. It's like that feeling of like you're chasing something for so long, and then you're like, oh, now I have the tool that I've been looking for to accomplish this, and this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What have you mixed on the console so far? Any projects you can talk about?
We've had some really incredible clients that have been so patient with us through this process of everything taking a lot longer than expected, and then the downtime of repairs and all that. And so one of the ones that have been kind of eagerly awaiting the longest to hear their stuff mixed through this is the Janglebees. And so that's what I've been working on. And then there's a few others, but I don't know what release dates are. So,
and in mixing that stuff, you were actually working on mixing the Janglebees before we got the console installed.
Yeah, I did. I did like a test mix for them on the old system, and then they were one of the first people that I kind of broke the news of the overhaul to, because I was like, hey, I can mix this now in the box, but we have this console coming if you want to do it on there. And so they're like, hell yeah.
Now, having worked on it a little bit, we're still working on our workflow, but what are you getting the sense that this console will allow us to do that we haven't been able to do before?
We're still in the kind of the learning curve with it. It already is speeding up aspects of workflow, and that's what I see as being the continued trajectory of less time to get the results that we want and that our clients want.
Mm-hmm.
So which translates to lower budgets, better service to the client. We can now deliver documentaries and films to Netflix, which is something we couldn't do before.
Because they require an Atmos mix.
You do Atmos mixes for that kind of stuff. Same with Apple TV, I believe, does Atmos mixes. iTunes does Apple mixes, Atmos mixes. What are the other streaming platforms that do the Atmos?
Tidal does Atmos. HBO, I believe, and Disney, I believe, also have Atmos compatibility. And I guess since Disney owns Hulu, that probably means Hulu. We want to enjoy the work we're doing. And a big part of that is having the right tools for the job. So that, I see that as one of the big motivators behind this. And one of the reasons why we're so excited about this is that it is helping us continue in that trajectory.
Yeah, I mean, like with video, you can get great video and photos with your iPhone or with any phone camera, really, nowadays. So it's not like you, in order to make good music, you need this console and you need all of this equipment. It's just that at the level that we're working at, and it levels us up.
I think that's a topic that I have a lot of thoughts on. Of you don't need super high end gear to make really awesome art. But if we're talking about music, the room you're recording in, it might, if it's your bedroom or your garage, chances are you can probably get it to sound decent for one style of singing or whatever it is. And you can make some really cool stuff, but it's probably not very versatile for a wide variety of genres and approaches. So that's a big piece of why we need to make investments, is that we need our gear to be able to do a wide breadth of things.
I would say that I would just like to really encourage anybody that is curious about this and wants to come and see it to give us a call, and we'll schedule up a time that we can bring them in and do a quick demo, because it really is, it's something you have to hear to understand.
Yep.
And it's here, it's available. It's the only one in the state. We're the only Dolby Atmos facility in the state. And it can be a game changer for projects, for people. And, like I said, it's important that Frostline offers world-class capabilities to everybody that has a dream.
You mentioned earlier how there are world-class musicians here in Alaska, but there's also this sense that you have to leave the state in order to do anything with that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of true.
It's just one more step towards giving artists an opportunity to stay in the place that they love here in Alaska and still be able to produce the kind of results that, you know, maybe they've felt that they've needed to go to Nashville or needed to go to LA, or we just want to be a part of that community and uplift that community.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people doing great work to sort of bring that international level of creativity and quality here to Alaska, which is really exciting. So we're stoked to be a part of it. Yeah, so just reach out to me. Contact is on the website. Our website's frostlinestudios.com. And we're looking forward to seeing you here.
Cool.
Until then.
Thanks, Mantha.
Thank you, Mantha.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Thanks, Derek.
All the visions of the past never seem to last. Visions of the past.
The intro-outro song for this episode is Stop and Get Some Gas by the Casey Smith Project. Recorded, mixed, and mastered here at Frostline Studios and available wherever you get your music.